All right, let's go ahead and put this in presentation mode. Oh, thank you, Evelyn. I see a very nice comment in the chat, and I'm glad you're here. All right, so today's session is called Bringing Stories to Life with Virtual ELA Tools. So my goal is to cover a lot of different tools that are out there and get you comfortable with ways that you might integrate English language arts instruction in an online setting. So that's our focus for today. And again, if you don't know me, I saw a lot of familiar names and faces, but if you haven't met me before, I'm Dr. Cassandra Kelly, and I've been in the Cal State Teach program going on 7 years, and my background is in educational technology, so I've done a lot to support teachers with technology, and I also was an elementary school teacher myself. So I like to look at it from the lens of a teacher and also just from things I've learned about technology, specifically for teaching with technology. So that's what we'll be discussing today. And I'm located in San Diego. And if you will in the chat, I'd love to know where everybody is right now. Where are you located? If you can just type where in California, or maybe you might be somewhere else. I think last time we had someone participating from Rome, which was amazing. Wow, so you're all over. That's awesome. I'm in San Diego, and normally it's beautiful here, but it's actually kind of a rainy day. It's shocking. So one of the benefits of having, these online sessions is that I get to see people from other places, and I think that's so powerful to know that we can all be connected even though we're not in the same geographic location. See lots of people in Northern California. So thank you for joining from everywhere. Let me go ahead to our agenda here. So here's what we're hoping to cover. It's a 2-hour session, so it's going to go by pretty fast. And my first focus is just talking a little bit about what reading, and when I say ELA, I'm looking at reading and writing. So integrating reading and writing or English language arts lessons in an online setting. So we will talk about how you can integrate some of the technology tools in a Zoom or a Google Meet if you were in a live session, or if you were asynchronous, if you're posting information and sharing things like in a Google Classroom, through Class Dojo or any other platform, how you might participate in reading and get the kids excited about reading. So we'll talk about some different formats, looking at read-alouds, shared reading, independent reading, and then one of my favorites is literature circles or book clubs. And then we're going to dive into some reading technology tools and talk about some of the benefits of these tools, because what's nice about the technology is that you can really differentiate according to the kids' reading level. So we'll talk about how to set up a class. We're going to look at NewsELA and Epic Books, which are amazing. And then we'll talk about some other ideas of things you can do, like with educational magazines and with children's encyclopedias, and there's a lot of free resources out there. So we'll talk about how you might utilize those. And then the final piece is looking at digital storytelling. So it's not only getting kids reading, but it's getting kids creating and writing and making their own stories, and having some really neat tools to show their understanding of the stories they're reading, or to build on a story and add their own ending or add a new chapter. So we'll look at that. Some of the tools we'll focus on, oops, I forgot to hyperlink Storyboard, but BookCreator, StoryboardThat, Make Believe's Comics, and PowToon. And I think we'll spend a big bulk of the time playing with BookCreator and StoryboardThat, because I think those are two that are very different but really fun and engaging. Some of the other ones will kind of highlight what they could be used for. A lot of these have a free version, but we'll talk about the difference between the free version and the paid for version, because there's some limited capabilities with the free ones. And then yes, this presentation I will share with you later, And I'll also have a recording that I can email out after it's done. So I'm going to put the link in the chat again if anyone just joined to the presentation. And of course, at the end, we'll have question and answer time, but if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to jump on your microphone or to put it in the chat, and I will do my best to monitor the chat. It can be tricky when I'm opening my presentation at the same time, so if I miss something, just let me know. And then I don't know if you saw my camera, just for fun, I'm in my reading corner today. So with Zoom, you know, you can change your virtual background. So I thought it would be fun to go into my reading corner, and this is something you might do with the kids. I don't know if you had your own classroom, you could have a picture of your real classroom reading corner, or you could create your own, just something to make it fun and get them excited about reading. So that's just a little behind the scenes trick. And let's get started. So the first piece is just talking about how we can teach English language arts lessons in an online or a virtual setting. So one of the exciting things is that there are just so many resources that you don't have to create your own read-alouds. You could post things in a, like I said, in a back channel or in an online classroom, like a Google Classroom with kids. And you can also play things like if we wanted to listen to a story right now, I could share my screen and we could listen to a story. So a read aloud is just a great way to get kids engaged in reading and to have some discussion about the reading. It can be an opportunity for you to be modeling for kids, like what does reading look like? How do we change our expression as we're reading, and how do we have pauses? What are things we look for when we're reading? So when a teacher is doing a read aloud, a lot of times they are asking questions to show like their thinking process behind the scenes, because kids don't necessarily know about how to think about books when they're reading. So the teacher does thinking out loud and asks questions, and also will pause and look at pictures and look at little clues in the story, look at vocabulary words. And so that's a big benefit of when you're teaching online. And then you can, sorry, I'm posting the link again for someone. Then you can check in and see kind of how kids are understanding the book and processing the book. So there's some great resources here. One of my favorites is this storyline one. I'm going to click on it. Can you see my new tab opening up?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is a great one that has just a ton of books read by different celebrities. They're really fun and engaging. You know, you can pick it by a certain person, or you can look for a certain topic, look for a favorite book. So it's just a great website here that you should totally save when you want to have a read aloud with the kids. And like I said, one of the big benefits of these read alouds is that you can also post the link and share it with them so they can look at it later. Some other ones are here, like there's some YouTube channels that have some celebrity read alouds, or some of them even have the author reading aloud. So that's really special because you could have you know, a connection with the book based on the author who wrote the book, or maybe an illustrator of the book. There's also just links of teachers reading books, and you could make your own. So one thing that I thought was really powerful, especially right now during COVID-19, is I've been seeing a lot of teachers who are making their own videos of themselves reading and sharing them with the kids, just to create a personal connection. And they post them, or sometimes they even have like a live story time, and they'll do it in the evenings, you know, before kids' bedtime, and the kids will actually log on and the families log on. And it's really important to remember that when we're teaching online, we're actually like entering the homes of our students, which is very different from when we're teaching in the school. So it's just a nice community building activity to be able to read together and talk about the book. And it's building this love of reading and love of learning. And we don't know necessarily how many books our children have at home and what they have access to. So this is a great way that you can share some stories with them and continue their love of reading, even if you're not in person. And then the right is a picture of Michelle Obama doing a read aloud, and she actually has, I hyperlinked the picture, and in the chat is a link, or in the, not in the chat, I'm sorry, in the presentation notes, that she does read alouds on Mondays with PBS. So there's a whole repository of books that she's read. And there's just a ton. For read alouds for older students, I'm sure there are. And also we're gonna look at some of these other tools that I have for articles and books that are available for kids to read. And some of the benefits is that the books can actually be read aloud to the kids. So some of them have that feature, which is awesome. Or like I said, you could make your own and make it really customized based on what your students are reading about and what you know they like. So there's a ton. Yes, good comment in the chat about there has been a lot of debate about what books are copyrighted and what you're allowed to actually record yourself doing. So you do want to be careful. You want to check into that if you're recording your own. I would suggest, you know, if you're nervous about it, just looking at what's already available. And you know, if you're not publishing it like to sell it, or you're not publishing it on a website, but you're just doing it with your students, then that's, you know, something else that might not be as big of a deal. But yes, it's important that you make sure, because that is, I have read a lot of articles discussing that, you know, making sure that you're allowed to actually read the story aloud. So probably the safest bet would be to find a video of an author reading a story. So anyway, that's just some examples of a read aloud strategy that you could have by sharing a video or having some content for the kids. Now, this was in one of my other presentations, and this is just showing you how if I was doing a read aloud with the kids and I wanted to have my screen shared, I could just embed videos into my presentation. And you might have seen this before if you did participate in one of my other sessions, but one of my favorite books is this whole series of Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, or Don't Let the Pigeon. There's a ton of different versions that are written by Mo Williams. And so what I did was I embedded a read aloud where it's actually the book, and it just shows you the pages of the book turning as it's read. So it looks like you're actually reading along. And then I found a version of it where the pigeon is animated and actually moving almost like if you were watching a movie. And then what's really fun is that the author has been doing these daily doodles at lunchtime and creating videos where the kids can follow along and draw the pigeon and draw other activities that align with the books. So this is just an example of how you can pull from resources and put them all together in a presentation so that it's easy to share your screen and to go over them, or you could post these links in, you know, whatever platform you're using to share resources with the kids. So you can watch those again if you haven't seen them. They're really cute. So then the other piece of reading is sometimes instead of the teacher being the reader or an author or a celebrity reading with a read aloud, is a shared reading. Now a shared reading is awesome because that's when the kids can follow along reading with you. And when you're doing a shared reading, there's different strategies that you might use. So you might want to share your screen, right? So that they can follow along with you on the screen. And one of the ways you could do that is either having the text embedded into a slide. So on my next slide, it's just an example that you've probably seen before, where I have an article on the screen and we practice using annotation tools with Zoom, where you could highlight on the text. The other option is if you post it in like a Nearpod presentation or a Pear Deck presentation, you can make it, the idea is that you can make it where it's controlled what they see on their screen so that they actually have to follow along with you if you do it that way. Or another option is you can just have the kids all open to the book in their own, either on their own screen, or if they actually have a hard copy of the book, and they can be reading along, you know, at their own, on their own device while you're reading out loud. So either way, the idea is that they're reading along with you and you're looking at it together. So when you're in an online setting and you're teaching live, it's helpful if you can have it on the screen so that they can see and you can show what you're highlighting with your mouse. That's a true way to know that they're on the same page reading with you, literally. And then you know, then you can manage, you know, how to ask questions and what pace you're going through the text. So again, I mentioned that it's just so important when you're doing a shared reading that you're modeling, that you're explaining your thinking process, and you're asking kids questions and getting them to look at things from, this standpoint as a reader, because they don't know how to do that on their own. They don't know to look for key vocabulary words, for example, or to look for clues in the context of what they're reading. So as you're reading, then when you're sharing it, you can say like, oh, wow, I wonder what's going to happen next. As I look at this picture, this is a little clue that might tell me something that's going to happen. I'm thinking that blah, blah, blah is going to happen. Or, I noticed that the character did this. And if it's a nonfiction text, you might be modeling, wow, I'm looking at this graph to the side here, and this graph is telling me some data about what I'm reading. How does that support what I'm reading? So that's the beauty of a shared reading, is that now you are actually modeling some of those strategies for the kids, so they know when they're reading to be doing that. So some strategies that are very specific. A closed reading is where we give them the text, we do a read through of the text, we look for key vocabulary terms, and we highlight and we annotate and draw all over it to really help ourselves summarize the different parts of the text. So that can be done with a very short passage. It can be done, with a multi-paragraph passage. It could be done with a book. But it's just a strategy where you would look at the text multiple times together and dissect it. Another strategy is a choral reading. So, it can be a little tricky doing a choral reading in an online setting, because sometimes there's a delay in the microphone and the audio piece, but it's still fun for kids. You could have them either do it with their microphones on, and you can kind of hear, even though if there's a delay, that they're reading with you, which is really powerful to hear. Or you could have them mute their mics, but still be reading with you. Maybe it's distracting if there's too many kids on the call. So maybe you have them mute their mics, but then they're still reading out loud and you can see their mouth moving as they're reading. The idea with choral reading is that you practice reading together so that you can model things, and you get them focused on what you're reading. You practice fluency, you practice expression, pausing when you get to punctuation marks. These are all skills you have to teach them, so you can still do a choral reading online. You just have to think a little bit about the logistics of what will work well with a group of kids. Another option is echo reading. So echo reading is where you read a part and then the kids read it back. So that way they can practice again what you've done, and then they can practice like the fluency and the expression. You could also have kids echo reading together where they take turns reading after each other. And it's a good opportunity, if you were doing that, where you could then listen to them. So when you're choral reading, you're reading at the same time. It's hard to listen to the kids individually. But if you do the echo reading strategy, you could have them either all be echoing you, or you could have individual kids echoing you. And that gives you a chance to listen to their fluency and their expression. And that might be a good way to do an informal assessment and see where they are in their reading, and to determine, if they're making progress, and if certain words are tricking them, maybe they need to do a little bit more vocabulary practice with certain words, or the types of sounds in the words, the phonics pieces of it. So this is a good opportunity when you're listening to them, that you can then come up with some activities to help them build on their reading. And then another favorite that I think every student loves, I've always done readers theater. And readers theater is basically where you can find them online. It's like a role-playing passage or story where you assign different roles. So everybody has a chance to speak, and sometimes there are more speaking parts than others. So you can gauge like where the kids are, if they're comfortable with reading and knowing their parts. And you can give them, an active role, or maybe, they're very shy and quiet. You give them something that doesn't speak as much, a role that's, a little bit more behind the scenes. But the beauty of readers theater is that for some reason, the kids kind of forget about that if they're not a strong reader, because they get excited to be in their role and they have a part. And so when they do readers theater, they tend to actually come out of their shells, and they get excited about it. And one of the benefits is that you can practice multiple times. So you could have them reading independently just to get ready for their parts, and then they read their parts and you go through the readers theater. So I would definitely look that up, because that's something fun you could do online where everybody has a role. You could even have the kids try to find something like a prop for their part, or have them dress up in some way and acting out their parts. It's just a great way to get kids, first of all, reading, but second of all, getting them just comfortable in the group setting and sharing and participating. So that could easily be done where you give them their parts ahead of time and have them review it, and then you know, they could put it together. And on the flip side of it, you could also have the kids develop their own reader's theater. So I've had students work in like a Google document where they each are adding a character and they're having a role of something that's going to happen in their story, and they're kind of working backwards, thinking about all the elements that need to be in their story, thinking about having a conflict and a resolution and a theme, and having the characters have to do some problem solving. And so they could write their own reader's theater and then perform it, which would be so cool, because it gives them ownership. And now they're working on not only reading, but writing, and then they're acting it out. So it gives a lot of opportunities. And then they could record it. If it's something that they do, maybe in small groups, they could record it and you could post it on a website, all the different groups, skits that they come up with. Or you could have like a live audience where you practice them together. But think about how that really creates a purpose and makes it really meaningful. The other piece, just to remember when you're doing a shared reading with the kids, or even a read aloud, is just that you want to always be assessing their comprehension to make sure they understand what they're reading. So when you're in an online setting, what that could mean is that you're pausing and asking questions and just having them jump on their microphones, or you could have them answer in the chat. So you could say, you know, what do you think the character's feeling? And then have some wait time and give them a chance to speak. You could call on specific students if you're doing the verbal method, because you don't want them to all shout out at one time on their microphones. Or you could just have them, you know, write in the chat. And then if you're feeling really snazzy, you could create polls. So if we're using something like Zoom that has that polling feature built into it, you could plan ahead of time some questions that you might ask. And then that makes it a little more interactive after you've read the story, or maybe you're just halfway through the story and you want to see, what do the kids think is going to happen next? Again, you're just trying to set a purpose. You're trying to keep them engaged. And then this is also a chance for you to see if they're following along and if they're understanding what they're reading. Now, a level above just doing it within the chat would be that you actually create some sort of informal assessment, or it could be formal, depends on when you're doing this. It could be while you're reading, or it could be after the reading. So you could even make a Google form little quiz type of thing with questions, or quizzes is another example that I really like, where it's an interactive quiz. Kahoot is another one. There's a ton of those tools. But you could share the screen and have some little questions that you go through, maybe about vocabulary, or maybe about the elements of the story. If it's a nonfiction text, maybe some questions about the content that they were reading. So it's just important that throughout the reading or at the end of the reading, that you're asking those questions to make sure that they know what they're reading. And we're going to talk about some of these tech tools that have this built into them. So that's really helpful for teachers, is that you don't always have to create your own quiz, because sometimes it's built into the technology. So this was shared in one of my previous sessions. I think it was in my Zoom. I had a PDL about how to use Zoom for online teaching. And this is just an example showing you that you could have the text that you want to look at embedded into a Google slide. And then we could enable the annotation feature and have the kids follow along and do things with us. So we could call on specific children, or we could just ask all of them to do things. It depends on how many kids you have on a call. If you have like 30 kids, then you probably don't want them all annotating at the same time. But if you have maybe a small group you're working with, you could say, okay, I want everybody to circle all the words that are tricky. I want you to underline something that you think is important for the main idea. And so this is that closed reading strategy, where we are looking at it together. We're going through some of these skills where we're reading it more than one time, and we're starting to summarize what it means. But I could easily, just share a passage on the internet screen and have them annotate as well. It depends on what your students are comfortable with and what you're comfortable with and what you're trying to read together. So this is just a way, if you really want to control it, you could put it in your slide. You could have it in a Nearpod or a Pear Deck where that's what's on their screen and they don't see anything else and they can't scroll ahead. So again, it just depends on the age group you're working with, and if you're doing the shared reading in a platform like Zoom, you got to decide kind of what's going to be really comfortable and easy for them to navigate. But that's a great strategy that you could do. Moving to the next one, just talking a little bit about independent reading. So a lot of times if it's an online setting, the independent reading is what happens outside of when you're meeting in a Zoom or a Google Meet. And you'll assign things asynchronously, and you can assign things through some of these third-party websites, or you could post an article in like your Google Classroom or your Dojo and give them something to work on. Now, what's nice about when you're assigning things asynchronously is that it's not like when we were in school where all the kids have the same book that they're all reading. You can customize it so you can know what your kids like, and you can give them books that are on their level based on what they like. You can also give them a variety of books to pull from, and then they can have choices of what they want to read and what they want to do. You could also have a specific area you're focusing on. So maybe I have some examples about if I was teaching a STEM lesson all about bridges and having the kids learn about bridges, because I want them to maybe build a paper bridge and do some activities with that. I might give them a ton of different resources about bridges, so books and articles and just different things that they would actually have to look through on their own, and allow them to pick and choose which ones they want to read to learn about bridges. So the idea is that we can give them a list of different books, or we can give them a set of topics that they can research the different materials, but we want them to have opportunities to pick and choose what they'd like to read, just like we would want to pick and choose. And we want to make sure it's on their level. So that's the beauty, again, of some of these tools, is that they will actually do that work for you, and they will differentiate the levels of the text. So having less words and having less challenging vocabulary is an option, or making it more challenging. And that's something really, really amazing, because all the kids can be reading about the same topic, but it can be geared towards their level so they can understand what they're reading. And then we talked about just the importance of assessing their comprehension. So some things you can still do just like you would in the classroom is have the kids create a reading log or a journal. And that can be done either on paper, like where they have their own paper journal, just like they might at school, or you could have an electronic reading log or journal. They could be blogging about it. They could use a Google Doc. I've showed in some of my Google Slides presentations how there's templates for journaling. So you could really make it fun where the kids have to write about the books they're reading. So maybe writing a little summary about what they're reading, or maybe they have a list of choices of things that they can write about depending on the book. That's just a good way that you can document that they're, first of all, that they're reading, what they're reading, when they're reading, and also you can look at how frequently they're reading and if they're understanding what they're reading. And you can give them specific prompts or graphic organizers that they could have to use to maybe analyze parts of the story or the theme or the setting, or whatever it is that you're working on, whatever skill. You can give them comprehension quizzes, which I talked about before, like if you give them links to different forms that you've created. And I know some of these tools that we're going to look at have built-in quizzes, so you could even use that to just assess their understanding. And then follow-up activities, that's where you can actually have fun with them and have them create something. So maybe they're creating the next chapter of the story, or maybe they're creating their own story that aligns in some way with what they read. Maybe it's the graphic organizer that you give them. Maybe they're making a video of the story and how they interpreted things. So that's just a fun way that you can assess their understanding, but then give them some creativity. And then you also just lastly want to remember to promote collaboration. So we're in this online setting and they might still be reading independently, but they could be reading the same book, or they could be meeting to talk about their books. They could be working on follow-up activities together. And that's where that whole book club idea comes in. So we'll talk about that next. So it's sometimes referred to as a literature circle or a book club. And a book club is where you have groups of kids working on the same book. Typically, you group them according to levels, because if they're all working on the same book, you want to make sure that they all can actually understand what they're reading. And that's important for kids because it's a social thing too, and they don't want to feel bad if they don't understand what they're reading in front of their peers. So you want to kind of group them according to their reading levels. But what you typically do is, let's say you have, if you're using, there's an assessment called the DRA. So let's say you gave the DRA and you know that they're all on a level M. And it's similar, like there's different assessments that give you reading levels. But then you pick like 5 books on that level, and you let the kids who are going to work together decide which book they want. And you might have, maybe you're going to have 2 groups, so you can have whichever the top 2 books that are voted for get to be the book clubs, and all the kids who are on M each have their book. Then you can do the same thing with your high level group. Maybe you have an O level group, and then you have some different books. But the idea is that they can pick the book that they want to work on. You give them some choices, and then they're all about on the same reading level. And what they do then is, it's not that they're just reading the book together, but they actually have jobs or roles. And so every time they read, it could be a chapter or a few chapters, their roles are to come together, and you'll have someone who, for example, is leading the discussion. So they might have to be the question finder and come up with some questions that they're going to ask the group. So that's their job. You might have someone who's looking for connections, the connection builder. So maybe their role is to think about connections in the story between characters, or connections between the real world and the characters, or maybe some connections that they had with what's reading. So it's that connection of text to text, text to self. And then they can get that as part of the discussion for the group to talk about. You sometimes will have somebody who does like the vocabulary words. So they'll look for words that are challenging, that they thought were important for the group to talk about. You'll have people who do like a character analysis of what happened to the character at this part of the story and how did they change. There's a ton of roles. Usually what you do is you assign them, and then they get to rotate. So they can have a different role every time they read. It could be by a weekly basis or by a chapter basis, or however you decide, or you can let the kids decide depending on what they're old enough to handle. And initially, when you're doing a literature circle or a book club, you participate with them. So you're also reading the book with them, and you also take turns having jobs, because you're making sure they know what to do and what their roles are. But after you've done it with them for enough time that you feel that they know what they're doing, then you let them kind of go for it. And you're just there to facilitate. And sometimes they might do things online where it's not in a live setting. So maybe they have a shared Google folder where they're creating some of their different documents together, getting ready for a small group Zoom session. Or maybe they meet with each other in partnerships and work on things, and then get ready for small groups. It's really open-ended, but the idea is that they all have a job, and that the jobs rotate, and then that you're usually there to meet with them to check in. Now, when we're talking about doing this in an online space, I'm going to click this link. This is an older website, but I had a professor who used to do a lot with literature circles, and he created all these handouts of different jobs. So if you click on activities on his page, is it showing up on your screen? Yes, okay, thank you.
Yes.
So what he did was he looked at the ISTE standards, and for each of the jobs, these were the jobs on the left, he wrote what standards go with it, and he talked about like different tools that they could use. So for example, the discussion coordinator could be monitoring the chat or a discussion board. Like if you were using Google, they could have like a stream that they're posting in. You could give them just a separate space. When I've done this, I used the app Edmodo, and I had my students in different groups based on the books they were reading, but then there was also a whole class group. So in the different individual groups, they would post the discussion prompts, and they could actually upload resources that they found to help with their jobs. Or if they created something, like for example, maybe they made a picture of the setting, then they would upload those things, and then they could also share it in the whole class discussion board. So it's kind of a fun way that there's different discussion areas that they can talk if they're not in a live setting, and they can pose questions for each other. What was fun about Edmodo is that they used hashtags, and they were all excited to have hashtags related to the books they were reading. So they would hashtag it and it would show up. Similar to what we do with Google Plus communities. They would just have a space that they could talk online about the books they were reading. So some of the other jobs, like I was saying, there could be a vocabulary person. So this is talking about how they might go into an online dictionary or do some research of what the vocabulary means. There's different roles for like the graphic illustrator, graphic organizer, literary expository, background researcher, the web researcher, media hunter, the connector. You could give them different titles if you don't like these titles, or if you wanted to use something a little bit more kid-friendly for young children. But on the bottom of this are actual handouts. So if I were to click on the vocabulary elaborator, there's a PDF that I could post in a Google Classroom. Now this is great, like I said, probably for a little bit older children. You would want to tailor it for younger children. But what it does is it tells you the job of what the kid would be doing. So the kid would be developing a list of words for the group to define in the context of the book or part of the book. And they're helping to define the words and share them with the other readers through the discussion board, or it might be when they're chatting live. It gives them some guidance. And then if you look here, there's a bunch of links of where they might look up some of these references of what these words mean. And then they gives them a little organizer of what they might fill out. So this is just an example of an activity you could create where each kid has a different job. And maybe they have that job for a few chapters and then they switch so that they're comfortable with it. I'm going to go back to another one. Let's go to the discussion coordinator. So the discussion coordinator is going to have some questions that they're going to talk about. And it has some sample questions to guide the kids of what they might say, like, what went through your mind while you read this passage? How did you feel while reading it? How would someone summarize it? So it's the same thing like you could do in person, except if you're online, you might have to have a space where they can post these things and look at them asynchronously, or you meet together in your groups and you talk about it. It all depends on what your kids can handle, but these are a great way that you can get them talking about things. So I like this one, this website, just because it shows you the technology ways that you can have the kids looking up things, and it just gives you some guidance as a teacher. So like the web researcher, for example, having to do some research outside of the book, it gives you some links of where they might research that it's like a safe space. And then some ideas of what you might give them to write as a follow-up. So that's the literature circle piece. Again, they all have a role, which is really fun for them, but they're all working on the same book. And when we're talking about using online spaces, some other tools are Flipgrid's awesome because you could have the kids making videos to talk about what they read and what they thought about the book, and then they can respond to each other's videos. You could have a Padlet where they're compiling all the different resources that they find about the book, the vocabulary and things. The Padlet's like a digital bulletin board where they all can post things. Edmodo, I mentioned, is great for like chatting, having the kids chat and share resources. And Edmodo is it's like a kid-friendly Facebook kind of space. It's not free though, so schools have to pay for it or teachers have to pay for it. But it's a great tool if your school has it, or if you have funding to be able to offer that to the kids. And then another option is Boxer. I don't know if any of you use Boxer for on your phone for just talking to people. It's like verbal text messages, or it's almost like a walkie-talkie app, because you can do it in real time, or you can just do it and your recordings are saved. So you could have the kids going on Boxer and talking about what they read, and it will post a thread of their responses, their verbal responses, and kids can just be talking about the book that way and stay connected. So if they have mobile devices, that's a fun way. You could have them using the app, and then you as the teacher can join, and you could have different groups working together and then sharing that. And similarly, you could do that with other teachers too, if you're doing a book club, because a lot of times for a PLC or professional learning, teachers have books that they have to read and have discussions about. So you could use these tools if you were trying to share resources about maybe an educational book about teaching. So that's the book clubs and the book circles or lit circles. This is just an example from one of my student teachers who is using an online platform for teaching her book clubs. And so this is how she has her lessons set up. She has a document that she creates every week, and it gives the kids a guideline of what they should be working on for each subject area. So for reading, she has recorded lessons that she was creating, and they were using Altitude instead of like a Google Classroom. But they would post the videos with the lessons, and then they would have a live session each week with the book club. So she manages it because she has a few different book clubs going according to their reading level and their groups. So first of all, she just has them reading every day for 20 to 30 minutes. So this is reading your fantasy reading book. And this is Monday through Thursday, and it says keep track of your daily reading on the Dear log card. So they actually have like a space to log what they're reading and how often they're reading, and how far they got in the book. So then they have specific directions that they're going to listen to the chapters of a book for their book club. So that's nice that they have the audio version to listen to. And then they have each day they have different things they're focusing on. So it says in the live session, they're supposed to be exploring the teaching point, and she just keeps it kind of general so she doesn't have to update that every time. She goes over it with them in the class. And then she has them working on the theme. So she made a video about identifying the theme and what they're supposed to be working on, and has a follow-up activity that they do online. And then she has one about connecting the theme to different stories, where she has that video. So this is just an example of how you might set it up in the online platform, where you have different activities for them to work on, like I said, asynchronously. And then when you come together, you'll know that they've done those activities because first of all, you can see them and monitor them online, but also because when you're in your live session, you can talk about it and they can come prepared to share something. And it could be set up in any other way, but this is just a way that you might organize the week so that you meet with your different groups and they have different things to work on when you're not meeting with them. So let's dive into some of these tools that you might use. So we're going to look at first NewsELA. One of the benefits of NewsELA is, first of all, that I was mentioning, you can customize what you're reading with the kids so that they can read according to whatever their learning level is. If I'm teaching a subject that I want all of them to be familiar with, but maybe I have some really, really low level readers who can't quite read it at that level that's on grade level, I can still provide them with an article about the topic, and they can still be a part of that conversation and they can still be learning the content, but it's geared toward what they can read independently. I can do some searches for specific topics or for the standards. When the kids are reading, it also will give them recommendations of things that might be helpful to them or that they might enjoy because it knows what they're looking at frequently. There are tools to annotate directly on what they're reading. It also has the ability to create PDFs of the articles. So if you have kids who don't have access, you could print out articles to send to them. You could also maybe take the articles and email them, and maybe they're only able to look at them when they're at a hotspot. So they'll have the article that they can save to their device and then look at without being connected to a hotspot later. And then it has some follow-up activities and assessment things you can do to give them. So we're going to join my NewsELA class, and I'm going to share my screen and show you what it looks like. So this little NewsELA is hyperlinked to the website, and then this is my class code. So I'm going to give you a minute to save that before I open up my screen to my NewsELA. It's also displayed on the screen too, so you can see. So this F4KEQE. Hypothetically, we're fourth graders today. So you're joining this as a student just to see what it looks like from the student access, but then you can also create your own classes as an educator. And I'm currently using the free version. There are again, all of these tools always have more sophisticated features if you spend money, and some schools actually have accounts with them, so it's not all out of pocket for teachers. They also, a lot of them are doing distance learning rebates, or you get more access for the time being, but again, I'm just on the free one. I'm going to put the class code in the chat also, because I might show you another screen, and that way you can still get to it. It's okay. Oh, thank you. Somebody already beat me. So NewsELA, it depends on what grade level. I mean, I would say it is really good for upper grade, because it tends to be more articles and less visually appealing than like Scholastic News has a lot of visuals, but I think they're both good. I think it really depends. So yes, you can get in my classroom and you're going to take a look at it. You'll probably be toggling back and forth, because I'll show you what it looks like from the teacher standpoint, but you can also kind of play with it on your screen too. So when you first go to NewsELA, this is what you'll see on your screen. Question?
Sorry. Yeah, it's prompting me to create an account. Should I do that?
Yes, it's usually easiest to do it through your Google, your Cal State Teach Gmail.
Thank you.
And you don't have to create an account as a student if you want to just watch my screen. It's really up to you. I just think it's nice for you to see what it looks like on both sides. So I'm going to be showing you what it looks like as a teacher. So when you log in, at the very top of the screen, it has different news things that will pop up that are just relevant, and you can assign them. But you also can look up specific things. You have your own library. So I'm going to click on library. So this is again showing me by the different topics. If I'm looking for, a reading skills check, this is like some activities where it'll have the kids read and answer questions. If I just want to show the kids about what's really relevant, I can assign any of these. So it also shows you in the little icons what subject area that they're relevant for. If it's just something that's like a news story that's relevant, it might be covering more than one thing. So there's a lot of integration of like social studies and history with reading. So I'm going to go to, if I wanted to look up, I'm going to go to science. So if let's say I wanted to look at this NASA article, I can click on assign, and I can click create an assignment or add to an assignment, so I can add different articles. I'm going to go ahead and hit create an assignment, and you can have multiple classes. So I have my Tech PD class. Now here's what's amazing about it. If you look to the right, it says NewsELA recommended, and you can adjust the level. So what happens is that the kids create an account and they have to take an assessment. And when they take the assessment, it gives them like their level. So it will know when they log in and you share an article with them, it will know what their level is, and it will adjust according to their levels. You can also, I can click on specific things as the teacher and just intentionally like set it at that level. So what it's doing is it's looking at kind of the word count, and it's looking at the vocabulary and some of the phrasing to determine the text level of it. So then when I assign it to the class, it will check it off, and then I can give them directions of what I want them to do. So for example, it says, highlight any words you do not understand in red. So then I'm going to go ahead and hit save or assign. And then what it does is it shows up now in my library of what's new, what's live, how many students have viewed it. So I have a few other examples here. Now you can just share a direct link to an article with the kids. So I could share it into Google Classroom or Remind. I could email it. I could, copy it into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and click on that article we just made. So it's showing me some different data here about how long people spent on the article. And then there's some activities and annotations. Yes, they can create the annotations right on it. It shows me the names. So this is like my little roster of students. I can edit things. I can go by individual students. So it collects a lot of data for me. The article text will change, yes. And it has the ability for me to set the level, or it can adjust automatically based on the students' profiles that they create. So then I'm going to go to, let's look at it as a, oh, this is the school performance. I didn't need to go to that. I'm going to go to the assignments, and I'm going to go to look at it as a child. Let's see here. Okay, so I just clicked on it. They're trying to get some data from me, it looks like. So when I click on it, if I was just sharing this, like let's say we're in the live call, I can click on the present mode and make it like a bigger screen for them. It just kind of makes it a little bit larger. It's different if you were doing this in the classroom, it would be like on the big screen. So as they're reading, they can just read through the article like this by scrolling. They can click on activities. So I could have an activity that I create, or it has a writing prompt here. So you as the teacher can edit what the activity is that they do. It already has a quiz created, but I could make some quizzes. So I can adjust it if I want to. I can change the level right here. So I can click on 1210, and now what's happening is it's getting longer and having probably more sophisticated vocabulary. If I click on a lower one, it's just it just trims it a little bit. Now some of them have like the read aloud feature on them too. Let's see if this one has that. I'm not seeing where it is. And it might be because I'm logged in the teacher version. Do you see that on your version as of the student? That's a good question. I think they're all vetted because it's an educational place, that everything that comes in is like a credible resource. As somebody behind the scenes is monitoring them. You can see though how this is, it's really more upper grade level friendly. just because of the format of it. So let's go do a search, because you can also search, let's just say, you know, if I wanted to look up Memorial Day, I can search for a specific topic. I can create, you know, some connections here with other content that's already available. I can look specifically for lower or upper elementary. I can look by text level, by grades. Some of the other filters, I can do multiple searches, like if I just wanted them to look at a primary source or a specific reference. Some of them are bilingual, so I do have a Spanish search feature. It tells you here's that somebody was asking about the sources of where the writing is coming from. I can actually do a search by the content provider, so I could kind of make sure that it's coming from something that I want the kids to be looking at. So you can see how you can click on different things. I don't think it does. I think this is more advanced for the upper grade. And you can see why it doesn't really look appropriate for young children, which is why we're going to look at Epic Books next. And Epic Books is good for all grade levels, but it's also really good for young grade levels. Now I can look at a text set, so it actually will have like a set of things that are all related. So it has different articles connected. Like for example, this one has 12 articles and 6 articles. I can also look up by standards. So if I'm looking for something specific here, like for grade 3, if I wanted that standard, I could click it and different articles will come up related to the standard that I can save. So you can see how you can really integrate cross-curricular like teaching, because you can have specific things that you're learning about in the world or just about different topics, you know, science or social studies related, and it'll pull up articles for the kids. So I can also, some of them have, there's like some video resources, which of course nothing's there for Memorial Day. So let's look up bridges. So I was talking about a hypothetical bridge lesson. Oh, there's no bridge videos. How about science? There's just no videos coming up. Okay, maybe I have too many things checked off. So did you get a chance to log in as a student and see the articles I posted, what they look like as a student? Let's see if I can click on one and if it will show me. Because what I was able to do also as a student is I can highlight things. There, it shows up on my screen too. So I can, if I highlight something like they are sweet, salty, bitter, and savory, it will automatically come up where I can highlight it and I could write something. So I could say, notice these descriptive words and share that. So when the kids are reading it, now it's going to point their attention to that. On the kids screen, some of them have the, it has like a little tool where it will read the article to you. And then some of these will have like where you can hover over the words and do vocabulary. So there's, oh, here's one in this experiment. So if I click on that, it's going to link, looks like it's linking to another article about experiments. So that's just an example of NewsELA, how you can give them articles and have different content that you share with them. I'm going to go to my classes. Let's see, click on some of these other tools so you can see. This is what I was showing you is just helpful for some data for the kids of what they're reading for the different subject areas, how often they're reading. Because the other thing I didn't mention is that the kids, when they have an account, like they can go to articles that you share with them, but they can also just search for articles and it'll give them articles on their reading level once they do the assessment. So they have a choice to really pick out other things that they want to read about, and then I can see kind of what they're reading. You can download the data too to a spreadsheet. So this is doing your work for you as a teacher, right? So it has its own testing let's see where I found it. I think it was under, let me go to my library. No, it's not there. Okay, let me go to my class. So when you make your class, you can put like what subjects and what grade levels. And then it gives you the stuff to share with the families. If I go to students here, I can also give them all their information and connect it to Google. And there's a place, let's see where my, oh, and you can add other teachers too, which is really, really nice. So you can co-teach. I think it was under reading skills check. Here we go. So reading skills checks are 9 articles leveled to grade levels, and you can give these out with the quizzes, and then it says these articles are designed to help the algorithms get started faster in assigning the best reading level for each student. So basically you assign these to them, and then it will start to recognize what they're able to do, which is pretty cool. So you can start off on your grade level and see like, are they able to do that? And then add an assignment. You could also just use data you might already have about the kids if you like in your school had to do some testing. So I was able to highlight, I'm on the teacher version when I clicked on an article and I was in my screen. Let's see if I can go in as a student. I don't remember if I have a student account on here. I don't think I do. I think I still have my Cal State Teach account. So if anyone's logged in right now, if you can share with us how you were able to highlight, because I'm in my teacher mode. Here's what I'll do. I'll sign out and I'll create an account on my personal. So this is what the kids would do. I'm joining a teacher's class, enter the class code. So let me go to my class code here. It's in my other browser. It's this F4KE. Oh, somebody put a nice screenshot in the chat. Thank you. Of how they were able to highlight. Okay, so I'm trying to join with my another account so you can see my screen as a student.
You see a screenshot in the chat?
There is. Yeah, somebody put in a file of a screenshot that you have to click on to download it. Oops. Okay, so here I joined the class. Here's the assignment. So I'm going to go to that space article. Now I'm clicking on it as a student. And it still does that same thing when I hover over it. It allows me to annotate. Now this one doesn't have any read aloud features. It doesn't, I don't see. So let's go, let me go to another one. Let me go to my microscope one.
Do you have to be using a desktop? Because I was trying to do it on my iPad and it wasn't letting me do the annotation.
You know, I think they might have an app that you have to download to do it on the iPad. I haven't tried that, so I'm not entirely sure, but I'm on my desktop right now, so it might be easier that way.
That explains it. It's not possible on the iPad for me.
So I'm not sure. I think you can download if they have an app in the App Store to be able to do stuff on there. It's a good question. You can see though, just as I'm in my student mode, how it has the articles assigned to me, and then it also has this Explore tab where the kids can just start looking for things too. So this is what pops up on their screen. And then anytime they read something, it's keeping track of that so that the teacher knows what they're reading and how long they're spending on each article. This one says explore power words, and if you click it, you see how it popped up with the word, and then it tells me the meaning of the word, and I can listen to the word. That's pretty neat. So some articles have these things embedded in them and others do not. And here we have practice power words. I can click that and answer some questions about those power words. And it will give me instant feedback, so the teacher doesn't even have to do that. So are there other questions about NewsELA? That's just a sneak peek of some of the features. Again, you can tinker with kind of giving some of the assignments if you log in as a teacher, or you can see what it looks like as a student. I'm not sure why it didn't work for you. It worked for me, as I used my personal email.
So I followed your link just the way you showed it, and then what it does is it says you're going into Cassandra Kelly's classroom, and then when it pops open, it opens as you know, just like your screen as a teacher. And when I go into settings, it puts me as a caregiver, and it allows me to assign assignments. It's not going in as a student.
Oh, maybe when you first joined it, you know how it prompted me if I was an educator, if I was a student, or maybe you already had an account. I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay, I'll have to tinker, but I'm not able to get in.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, make sure you click on student if you're wanting to see it in the student mode, if you can try again. And it's also possible it might limit how many people I can have join because I'm on the free version. So that's another thing that could be happening. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation here. Let me just do a new share. So this is just a screenshot too, showing you how you can look up those specific areas and find articles that you want to share with the kids. So Epic Books. Epic Books is ebooks or electronic books. And what's awesome about it is it can coordinate, you know, based on the kids, like the reading level or the genre that they like to read. It looks at the age of the student. It also has different features, like I mentioned, audio feature where some books can be read aloud. Some of them can be translated into other languages like Spanish. It will recommend books based on what the kids are reading. And it has a little spot where students can have book reviews that they share of, so they can see like what other kids have recommended about books, and they can create their own reviews of the books. Some of them have videos and quizzes at the end of them. They don't all have the same things. So you can look at them ahead of time as a teacher and decide like what you would want to assign to the kids. But the idea is just that it's a great place for the books that are online and free for the kids to use. And it just gets them reading, and they can do this offline, or you could just be sharing the screen doing, like I said, a shared read aloud together where you're looking at a book. And then it even has other tools like there's an interactive whiteboard. So I created a class. If you go to the Epic website, which I have hyperlinked here, it's getepic.com, and you're going to join as a student. The class code is PMS 5038. And you can always look at it from my screen too, if that's easier, or you know, you can explore after the fact, whatever you're comfortable with. I'll put this code in the chat as well. And I didn't get to pick it, it just automatically generated the code for the kids. Oh, thank you. Somebody already put it in there. I'm one step behind. So I'm going to do a new share to that page. And we're going to look at Epic. So I can add people manually, or I can share the link with you. That's the options for getting people on Epic. I'm just going to minimize some of these other screens I have open so I can see this. So here's the login instructions. I can give them, if I click on this at school, it's an easy way to just show them where to go. They can click on getepic.com/students and then join with the code. So this is the site. I'll put it in the chat. getepic.com/students. Then you'll get to select your name and join the roster. I could print these instructions. I could copy these instructions. It also has iOS instructions. So you would join through the app. If you're a student, you have to have the Epic app. And then once you have the app set up, then it will ask you if you have an account, and you'll create an account or join the account using that class code. This is nice. It has this little try student experience. So I'm going to click that first. So we'll look at it as a student. And I'm just going to be Allison for right now. So when I logged in as a student, I created a little library you'll see on my teacher view in a little bit for bridges, because I was talking about if I did an activity for STEM about bridges and I wanted the kids to go through and read some resources. So it just tells me right here, Miss Kelly sent you a book, and I can click check it out. So now I can look at this book that it sent, and it automatically opened to it. On this view as a student, I can click on the pages and they will turn. If I don't know a word, some of them are bolded, so I can click on them and it will tell me. It verbally said it in my ear. I don't know if you heard it. And then it gives me the definitions. It has a lot of visuals, so you can see why this would be really good for young children. And also you can see how I could do this as a shared reading on my screen, where we could be discussing and looking at some of these things. Some of these other words are allowing me to click on them for description. If you look at the bottom of my screen, it's telling me how long I've been reading and what page I'm on. And if I want to zoom in or zoom out, if I click on that little full screen mode, that's nice, because right now I'm in the web browser, so it wasn't full screen. So now here I am, I'm able to look at the pages. I can use my mouse buttons, or I can use my keyboard keys. So we could be reading through this together, very visually appealing. We could have the kids reading passages, or reading passages together, echo reading, answering the questions. It has a nice glossary. Once I finish the book, I can click on finish book. And then what's nice about this one is it says there's a whole series of other books. So you can see how it automatically is recommending other books. If I really liked just the style of this book and I wanted to read about other engineering structures, I could click on those. It just has more like this, so some other recommendations. So I'm going to click Finish Book. So that way it shows I finished it. It tells me here, it's kind of gamified, so it tells me I get points. It tells how long I read. Now for the teacher, I could see 2 minutes might not be very appropriate, so I would know that maybe the kid did not read it, right? I could talk to them about that. If they like another book, they can automatically click it. Now you can see on my left too, from the student view, it does tell you the age range and the level of the books. So they do have their own little way of making sure that the books are aligned with any assessment data you've already taken to know what the kids' levels are. So this is a totally different book that it's just showing me I can click on. And now it does have fiction and nonfiction. So this is another good nonfiction one with a lot of diagrams and visuals, things that are hyperlinked between them. Okay, so I'm going to close that off. Now I can look at specifically things that I want read to me. So it'll show me books that have the read to me feature. So I'm going to click on this animals one. So if I want to do the read to me feature, let's see. Where's the little button? Oh, look up here in the top right too, I can favorite my books. I can take a quiz of the books. I'm trying to find where I read it, have it read to me. My screen's got too many things. Oh, here it is in the left corner. So it has this little green button. I had the chat in front of me, so I couldn't see it. Can you hear it, how it's reading to me?
No.
No, I might not have the, let's see, share computer sound. Okay, let's try again. Now?
It's probably because you have your ear thing in, maybe.
Oh, maybe. Let me try. Let me just try sharing it one more time. All right, how about now?
Being able to hover help the hummingbird? It gives it the power to stop
Great.
and feed on a flower's nectar while staying in midair. When it is done eating, the tiny bird zooms off to find more fuel for its body.
So if you're looking on my screen, what's so cool is that as it's reading, it's zooming in on the text. So we can follow along with it and it will actually show me what word it's reading. The voice is pretty good. It sounds like it's a recording of a person and not like a artificial intelligence. It sounds really, really natural. And it just kind of goes through it. I can pause it. If I want to go back, I can click on, a different page. Let's see if I can click on, I haven't tried if I can click on a different word.
And
I'm going to hit play.
hummingbird. Most kinds of birds can fly. However, only one kind can hover, staying in one place in the air for more than a few
If it would
seconds.
let me go to a specific part, but I'm having a hard time doing that on my version. So it looks like it just kind of auto plays from the beginning. But still, it's a really nice feature that it will read it to the students, right? And go through the different parts. And not all the books do this, but as you can see, it kind of hovers over stuff and then I can click on things. So I'm going to go out of this and back to, so it has a different list. It has some videos that are connected to some of the books. It has comics. So, you have some kids that just really want to read kind of some more fun, light fiction things, they can click on comics, the audiobooks.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
My mentor teacher uses it a lot, and I know she had a hard time, actually not a hard time, but she had to scroll through a lot of books to find books that are AR level so her students could take tests. Is there an easy way to find which books are AR books so students can take tests?
That's a good question. Let's look at it when I go to the teacher view and see, because I haven't done that, but I can look and see and try to help you find that, because I don't know. But I know that from the student standpoint that, you know, they can pick whatever books they want. So it's kind of just, it's good to have the AR and good to have the level text, but it's also just good to get the kids reading in general, right? So, so yeah, let me look at that when we get to the teacher page. The last piece I just want to show you on this page is how it makes recommendations. So it has all the popular series that kids might be reading, even series that we might know from when we were young, like the Boxcar Children. I'm going to click on one of these. They're not, what's nice is they're not limited in what they can read. I can click on more like this and it'll come up with a bunch of other options. Let's see.
Nut, he exclaimed. It's a pretty short tree.
Just to show you the difference between the audiobook and then the read aloud is that the audiobook, I can't see the font in the text as I'm going through it. I'm just listening to it. Whereas when we were looking at the last one, it was showing me on the screen. So that's just a different thing. Let's exit this. Let's go to the teacher view. So on my teacher view, this is where, again, I can add students. This is where I have the assignments that I create. So when I click on, I'm going to go to view all my assignments. I can look at things by the roster. I can look at things by the assignment. I can see who was assigned to what. I can click on for some data. If I want to just assign it to certain kids, this is where I can differentiate. If I know it's a certain level, I can click on and assign it to just 2 people if I want to, or I can give them all access to all of these and let them jump around and look at whichever ones they want to, and I can kind of look at the data of what books are really popular and being read. I'm going to click on the view progress and I can see who's read it, how far along they've read it. I can click on, like I said, just specific people. I'm going to go to daily reading. This is going to give me a summary of how often the kids are reading by minutes, which is nice. I can download that log. So it's pretty awesome how it just automatically generates that data. I can click on student logs and look by students how many books have been finished. Again, when I click on that though, I want to see how long it took them to read the book. So I really know how. This one says, just that one I did with you where it was like 3 minutes. So that shows me that, you know, I probably haven't really finished reading that book. The kid marked it as finished, but 3 minutes is not ample time. It also shows if just a book was browsed at, like by looking through it. And you can download that activity, which is pretty neat. So that gives you an idea of what the kids are reading, what they like to read. Then some of them, as I mentioned, have quizzes at the end. So you can actually look based on the assignment, how you gave it, if they had the quiz. I'm going to click on. So for example, this Bridges one has quiz options, and it will give me the results of who's taken it and what they did, how they did on it. So I'm going to click on quiz options, quiz results. No one's taken it, so it's not popping up yet, but this is what it would look like, the percentages. If I click on take quiz, I can see what the quiz looks like. And I don't believe I can modify the quizzes. They're just automatically in there. I haven't tried to modify them. But you can see it gives instant feedback, and then that data will show up for the teacher, right? So I'm just kind of randomly hitting some buttons here, not knowing much about Bridges. Yay, so far I somehow got lucky. Oh, got nice try. Didn't get that one. So now it gives me the data, and then if I hit finish, it would show up right for the kids. And you can see their progress again. So let's talk about that question about the AR. I'm going to go to my home page. Here's where I can click and I can do a search by chapter books, by the genre. I'm looking for a specific subject area. So it has the different topics. It will give me things that I can click on to just save them because they sound interesting. It tells me again the age, the level, if there's a quiz. So I can filter them too if I wanted to look specifically for certain ages, if I wanted to look by reading levels. It does have other leveling systems. So here's your AR. Is this what you were asking about? I lost my chat screen, so I don't know who was asking that question.
She said yes, that's it.
Yes, oh good, thank you. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't hear you. So yeah, so this is where we can change whatever system that we're using because it depends. Some schools do the DRA, some do Fontes and Pinnell. I think guided reading levels, it has just a range. And then if we're looking for fiction versus nonfiction, if we want early picture books, this is kind of nice. If we were doing like a reference book, I want to only look at books that are going to give them some factual information. Here's the language options. So English, Spanish, French, Chinese. Let's say I was looking for Chinese. Let's see if I can find, if I clear some of these filters, if I can find something. Oh, they don't have anything in Chinese. Well, that says age 5. No books in Chinese. Let's try Spanish. Lots of Spanish. Anything in French? There's some French books. So that's kind of neat for your English language learners. And also, you know, maybe you're in a bilingual type of program where you're trying to teach the students another language. You can actually give them some books to read in that language. If the book is available sometimes in more than one language, that's also a really cool way that you can have them looking at the books. Then if I wanted to just look for quizzes, only show books with a quiz at the end. It will only show those ones if I'm trying to get some data from the kids. And then if I want to assign it, I click assign. And like I showed you before, I can assign it to the whole class or I can assign it to specific students. So that's where you can differentiate by reading levels, by interest, by topics that you're studying. Let's say they were all doing a report on a different structure, like bridges and canals, then I could give them each different books to look at. And then some of them, like I said, have videos, but not all of them do. So I could click on, here's one that has a video.
There's no doubt that sugar makes things taste delicious. But is it really all that bad for you? Let's find out on today's episode of...
So then at the top here, I can add it to a collection. So maybe it was related to something that they were reading about and I can share that with them. Oh, and this one has a create quiz feature. So I could click on create quiz. Looks like you can make some of your own questions. I haven't done that. Very awesome. Yeah, this is a fun video about sugar. So that is the EPIC library. Again, you have the ability to really tailor things for the students on their levels. When you create your own profile, you can you know, set it up with your own little avatar and put your information. So you can create one for Cal State Teach and play with it. It has all the data for the students. So on the top here on my home screen of the class, this is where I got to all the information about how many books they were reading, how many people are enrolled. Again, I can look up things by subject. I can look up by the level of the reading, the genre of the book, the format of the book. So it's just a great resource. And we could be doing this as a shared read aloud with the screen share, or we could, I could assign things for the kids to do asynchronously, or I could do a little bit of both. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation, and you can play with that. That's a lot of fun. Let's see. And this was my library of all the bridge books that I have a screenshot of. Some other resources, I know some of you were talking about Scholastic, National Geographic has several. There's a lot of kids magazines that have nonfiction articles and some great reads. So I'm going to just click on Kids Discover to show you that one. I have a free account, a temporary free account with them. I liked it a lot because, again, you can look up topics and customize things. So if you want to join my class code, this is the class code for Kids Discover. And the link, it's hyperlinked in this graphic, or I also have the link in the presentation, the presenter notes. Can you see my screen where it opened up?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, good, thank you. So this is similar to where I can look up things by standards, or I can look up by topic. So it's really nice. It has the grade levels and the Common Core standards and Next Generation standards. It has, you know, each state's different criteria. If I was looking up science for grade 4, I can do a quick search. Oh, sorry, I didn't fill out the state. So for California. And it's going to start pulling up the standards, and then I can click on, let's say I want to do electricity. So there's a whole unit about electricity. In this unit, these are all different articles. So again, this is kind of like a hybrid version of NewsELA and Epic Books, because it has the levels, and it has articles that I can click on. So I can assign these to specific kids or to specific classes. I'm going to save a couple of these. Oops. I can save them to my desk, or I can save them to the class. So that's what I was looking at there. So let's go to Start Reading Unit. So this one has, again, the levels here on the top. I can adjust the level of the Lexile, so it can be a little bit more challenging, or I can make it a little bit more user-friendly if I'm working with students who need a little bit more support with the vocabulary, and I want to make it a little bit more user-friendly for them. This one has some videos embedded in them, lots of visuals. So it has this scroll feature. I can also click on to jump around to some of the other topics, and it has a quiz. This one has, if you look at my little toolbar I just clicked, it has some built-in features for like annotation and playing things, translating, dictionary. Oh, that one's not doing anything.
Flip on a light switch. Now flip it off. That simple on-off action helps show electricity's power.
So this is more of an AI reading, but you can see how it's highlighting as it reads. So this would be really helpful for kids who maybe want to have it read to them and be able to read with it. Let's click on translate and see if we can get a word translated.
Oh. No word selected. No word selected.
Select you. Maybe I have to click on the little hand.
They show electricity's power, too. No word selected.
Doesn't like me.
Some scientists feel that the word electricity is misused.
Sorry, I can't get it to stop reading to me.
The stuff coming out.
this is really cool too. Wow. I can change how fast it reads. I can change if I want. I guess it's
English,
working with my
English, U.S. female default selected from the list. English,
whatever
U.S.
my
female default.
thing is.
Speech. English. Spanish selected from the list. Arabic, Cantonese, Chinese, Chinese simplified, Chinese.
Sorry, let me refresh.
Electricity brought about the second revolution in the electricity brought about the
I was trying to click on something, but maybe I'm clicking the wrong toolbar. Anyone have luck with that on your screens? The lowest grade. That's a good question. Let's look at these Lexile levels. I would say it's very similar to NewsELA, where it's probably maybe like second grade. But it's going to depend on the kids' reading levels. But it looks pretty sophisticated still. Let's see if we can find a unit that's maybe not as complicated. I'm going to go back to search and look for my bridges again. I think most of them are still pretty sophisticated when I look at it. Yeah, I'd say probably this is more upper grades, just based on the levels and what I'm looking at. But it does have nice features. It still could be good, like if you were doing a read aloud just to teach them about something, like if you wanted to give an overview about the topic and then have them dive a little deeper with it. But yeah, I would say upper. So I'm going to switch back. Sorry about I couldn't get it to highlight. Let's go to a new share. Oh, I forgot I already have it open. So these are just some other ones that you could have accounts with. Now, they're not free. Some of them have free articles, like National Geographic Kids will have some free articles, and then some you have to pay for. But that's just an example of another way you could do a shared read aloud besides a book, is you could have a magazine article. In the presenter notes, I also have like an example of like Kids Britannica is a great kids encyclopedia that has some good text that are credible and that are written in kid-friendly language. So you could really pick and choose whatever you're wanting to do with the read aloud, or if it's a reading based on some specific content area that you're studying. All right, moving to our next slide. So this was what we went through. We looked at how there's some quizzes and the ability to assign books based on units of instruction. Then I have just in the presentation a bunch of links here for you of different ebooks. There's a lot of free libraries. Some of them are not free, but there's just a ton of places where you can have the kids access books online if you were having them do this asynchronously. Or these are places where you might pull up an article to read together. And then also another thing to point out is that you can use tools like iBooks Author and have books that you create. And then there's some books in iBooks that are already made for kids to look at. So for example, in Cal State Teach, all of our modules are through iBooks. You could do a search through iBooks and find other books for the kids to look at. So that's a great list of several of them to look at. And the next piece is we're going to talk about digital storytelling. So as I told you, time's going to fly by. It's already getting close to 12 o'clock and we have to hit up some of these digital storytelling tools. So there's a list of several digital storytelling tools. There's even more out there. Not all of them are free. We're going to look a little bit more closely at BookCreator, which has some free options that you can do, but then if you want to make more books and do more collaboration, then you do have to have a paid for account. So we're going to take a look at that first, and I've created a library for you to join. So if you will go to BookCreator.com, which if you're on an iPad, you would go to the app in the App Store. If you want to join my class and help create the book as a practice, you don't have to. You can always just watch. I'll put the link in the chat also for you. Oh yeah, Raz Kids is awesome too. Great resource. So when you join, we can create the book together with this. And I'm just gonna, while you're getting connected, somebody put it in the chat, I see, I'm just gonna show you some of the benefits of BookCreator. First of all, it gives you different formats of the book that you can create. So you can make it in different layouts. And if the kids are really into comics, it has a comics feature. It also has where you can embed different types of media. So you can have where they type text, actually writing out things with their handwriting, images, audio, and video. And then there's different ways that you can export your book once it's finished. So you can create like a static document of like the PDF version of it, or you can share it to Google Drive, have it in a Dropbox. And so that's just a great way that you publish your book. And the other benefit too is it has the collaboration features where we can create a book together and share the book together. I do have a really cute video here I'm going to show you while you're getting set up of a student. One of our Cal State Teach faculty has a video of her daughter using BookCreator. And let's just take a quick peek at this. Let me put it back in presenter mode. So this was her assignment description of what she had to do. She had to make a how-to writing assignment, and it tells her exactly what she has to include in it: pictures, drawings, conclusion, descriptive language. So this is her rubric, right? Her criteria. The next one is the actual rubric of what it looked like with all the different pieces of how she was getting scored. So this is her planning with her graphic organizer. She actually did a real how-to of herself cooking, and she took pictures, and then now she's making her book. So it's telling you her process, looking for images. I'm going to skip through. Here she is in BookCreator, dragging and dropping her images. She's making her title. Then you can change the colors so you can make it as pretty as you want. She's recording her voice talking. That's what that feature is at the top.
6 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 tablespoons milk, and add-ins which will be shown at the end.
So how cool is that, that she's practicing reading and writing and this real world assignment where she's actually making a recipe book?
The first thing you'll need to do to make the no-bake cookie dough is use the dry ingredients.
These are just the different pages of her book. For the sake of time, I'm not going to play the whole video, but you can watch it. So she made this beautiful book, and then she went through the rubric afterwards to see how she thought she did, and she self-evaluated. So let's look at BookCreator. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to my BookCreator tab. I have screen overload, sorry, just give me one moment. All right, we have Epic Books open, so I have to close out a couple of these tabs that we've looked at and go to BookCreator. I'm going to go back. So you can see whose authors who are on the call right now are on the book, people, and it will tell you how many books they've written. I can add co-teachers. So these are people who've joined. This is how I can project the screen.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Kelly, but we still see your PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm glad you interrupted. Thank you. Let me try again. There we go. Can you see my library?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm in my library, and I have my own little bookshelf of my books. I can also look at books that are shared with me by other people. So that's here. You can share your library code. And what I was clicking on when I was talking is it's showing me right now who's in my library. So it's showing the different students, which would be yourselves. And it also tells how many books have been published by these students. So I could click on a specific person and go to their library. So I'm going to go back to my library. And I have this class book. And just like we saw in the video, I have the ability to click on and add images or record and add different design features. And then what's awesome about it is that you can also help add things to the book. So I can click on combining books. If you were working on part of a book and I was working on part of a book and we want to put them together, if we want to copy them, and then I'm going to click on this collaborate option. So it shows you how we can real-time collaborate with Chrome. Again, not all of this is free, so it's helpful to have the free version. On an iPad, you would have to download the app, BookCreator app, and then it will ask you if you have an account, and you would log in as a student with the code. I'm going to go back to where we were. Maybe, I think it's frozen. Sorry, no, maybe it's just this little X, my bad. So these are just different options here for the teacher view of how students can edit their own books, students can read each other's books, if I want students to be able to publish online. So there's just some safety features. I can click so I can see just the other books on my shelf. So if I'm clicking on a new one, I'm going to click open a new book. And this is where I can go into the book and actually add things to it. If I want you to join my library, this is again where I would project the code for you. So I want you to see if you're able to add to my book. I see somebody's writing on the book right now. Awesome. So in real time, we could be in a small group talking about what we want to put on the book and each be working on a page or working on a page together. I could take a picture and upload a picture, or I could upload something from the internet. It has the ability to add hyperlinks and videos. So we could have this beautiful creation, and we could use this to showcase our learning, or we could write, you know, our own version of a story. Really, really awesome what kids can do with BookCreator. The only thing is that there's limitations for how many books and how many pages you can have if you're doing this on the free account. I downloaded the app, but it doesn't prompt you to sign up. I'm sorry, I don't know why you're not finding that piece to add the code. Maybe if I were inviting you, if I can invite you directly, let's see. Invite others to join. I don't see if there's a way that I can email you the code. Anyone else working on it in the app? Somebody's already writing on. This is awesome. So this is the comic feature where it has the different layouts for the comics. And you usually have to have a cover for it to save it. And then we can go in and we can do the layout, and it has built-in stickers and the panels. So let's say I wanted to do, let's do this layout. So I can add all my graphics and I can have the kids do something to showcase some learning. So maybe they're doing an extension of the story they read and saying, what would the characters do if they were in a comic? So that is BookCreator. The other one I have is, let's see, let me go back to my presentation. I have some examples of other books. So on this next slide are some examples of books that kids have made. Here's a picture of a screen of a kid going through the parts of the stomach and the intestines, and they have little clips of themselves explaining the process. So this is a great way the content can be delivered and the students can show their understanding of it. Oh, interesting. I guess you have to use the browser version on the iPad. I don't know why. It's bizarre. So then the next one is very similar, is Storybird, and Storybird is not free, but it's a lot like BookCreator in the sense that you can make books and collaborate on the books. So I just wanted to throw that in there for you to look at. I did create a class code, but we're not going to have time to go into all of these together. But it's the same way where the kids can actually make books, and then Storybird also has, kind of like Epic Books, it has books that the kids can read, and you can assign them. So it's a great tool, but again, it's not free. One more fun one that I just wanted to show you is StoryboardThat. StoryboardThat is a free one where they can make comics and storyboards. So if you look at the example video, again, my friend's daughter created a response to, she was reading The Hatchet. So let me show you. Sorry, I'm trying to make it bigger.
My teacher gave me the assignment of making a digital book report. She gave me lots of choices. I'm making a digital storyboard using StoryboardThat. I'm doing it on the book Hatchet. This video will show you how I made my digital storyboard.
So basically you can drag and drop, down a little bit, I'm sorry, it's loud, and create the characters and then speech bubbles and have them talking. So that's what she's doing with the story, The Hatchet. She's showing when they're crashing the plane. She actually has the different pieces. So this is a great way to evaluate her understanding of the story, to give her some creativity to extend what she's learned into this comic version of it. She gets to have fun with who the characters, what they look like, and then this is her at the end. She printed it out.
I used strategies my teacher taught me, such as going online and finding images and using text boxes.
And then she also did a self-assessment where she had to talk about if she had all the pieces that she was supposed to have. So that was a really cool one. And then another similar one that's free is Make Believe Comics. Make Believe Comics, what's cool about it is it has a ton of translation features. So if you look up at the top of this, it shows you that you can make them in all these other languages, which is helpful for English language learners. So I have, example videos of ways that you might use Make Believe comics. And then the last one that, we didn't really spend a ton of time with is PowToon. So PowToon we use in Cal State Teach. We sometimes have you explore it, and I've had student teachers use it to make different videos about their reflections. So they have a template which I saved and I'll show you. This is what it looks like when the kids can make a book report using PowToon. So PowToon is almost like it's a video presentation where they can add the different slides, and it works great for literacy. So let's just take a quick look at this book report. she read Warrior Cats into the Wild, and it adds the little animation. She can put the text in there, and then it makes it really fun in this notebook paper format. Around, so she's just discussing the different parts of the book and her takeaways. She's added some visuals. She's writing her analysis, which is spelled really cute. So that's, again, another tool that you could use as a follow-up where the kids are talking about their takeaways from the book. So I know this always happens where time runs out. I wanted to show you as much as possible of different tools you can use and get you thinking about ways that you can teach reading online to support your students. Again, teaching them live or teaching them asynchronously. There's a lot of options with ways that you can provide resources for them and get them reading and writing and talking about what they're doing. And so anyway, that's everything I was hoping to cover. It's just a little faster than I wanted to, but I hope you'll kind of explore further after this. And then this last slide is the attendance form that's hyperlinked. So please right now, go ahead and click that and sign in that you have attended. You'll earn 2 clinical experience hours, and just make sure you put your assigned faculty, and then everything else is drag and drop down of my name, the dates. This is a PD presentation. And then I would love to hear just what you found helpful, because we're also trying to develop other PDs for you, and maybe you want to dive deeper into something. It's just nice to know what you're taking away from this. Thank you. It's my OCD techie that I try to make the forms easy to navigate through and user friendly. So anyway, I really appreciate you coming on a Saturday, and I will share this recording with you. I'm sorry that we didn't, like I said, get as much time to dive deep into things, but that's your exciting part, is to dive deeper on your own and hopefully try some of these tools with students. And yeah, I can put the link in the chat too for you. So make sure you've done that attendance form. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can jump on the mic. I'm going to stick around for a little bit. And I just appreciate you coming.
This is Christy, sorry. This is 2 hours, correct?
2 hours, yes.
Okay. Hi there. I always have to turn off my video when I've got so many apps open, because it just slows me down and freezes up everything, as you can see.
No worries. No worries at all.
Thank you. I always feel like I'm weird and incognito when I'm no video, but
I think it helps when everybody's on the call too, because it gets slow, just bandwidth. So that's probably good.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. And I will email out the recording once it's processed on the cloud. I'll send that out to everybody who joined today. And that way, if you guys know of other people who couldn't make it, we can share this with them. There's a question in the chat about the follow-up assignment. There's no follow-up, only because the last one I did was Google Slides, and I had a follow-up, and I had 75 presentations to go through, and it was really hard because I still have students and other projects going on with the virtual summer school. So I just couldn't monitor that. But I will say, you know, you can, as a follow-up, maybe with one of your observations with your faculty, you can use one of these tools and get input from your faculty, and they might, you know, find a way that they can verify those CE hours for you.
Cassandra, on the
oh, it says the wrong date.
May 30th for the date.
Sorry, that's when I was originally having it, and I think it's, since it's already set up, just go ahead and select that date, and I'll fix it.
Carson, stomping like that just makes them all run. When they heard you stomping down the hallway, they all ran under the couch. Okay, so